finish up working on 1D on page 1 of lesson 4D, module 4. Wow, that's a lot to say. Okay, so we were talking about the circumference of the grass watered. And I think I'm just going to make the picture little. I'm tired of going up and down, up and down. So here's the grass watered, this area, and they want the circumference. So they're really asking for the circumference of the circle. Like I said, you don't have to have this formula memorized, but I taught you a cool little trick. Cherry pie's delicious. Apple pies are too. So if you ever do have to memorize them, there you have it. So there's two formulas here. You can use either one. I just like to use the pi d one just because it's simpler. But you can use a 2 pi r. You get the same thing. The reason 2 r's is a d. So it doesn't matter whether you use 2 r's or a d when you're doing that. And so then right before the video stopped, we looked at the picture and we said, well, if the radius is 15 and this radius is 15, that makes the diameter 30. So that's what I'm going to put in for D. So, and I wrote it here just to remind us. So C equals pi times 30. And like I said, pi is written second for the final answer. So 30 pi would be my exact circumference. So 30 pi, because remember, and just put it right there whenever you're writing it on the test or the final, I guess. Write it just like that. Just say, okay, got to remember, exact has a pi in it, approximate, because it says 3.14 as an approximation. So that's your hint how you can remember. Units, if you remember from our sheet, I said that circumference just gets feet, area gets feet squared, volume is three-dimensional, so it gets feet cubed or inches cubed or whatever. So this one would just be feet. And remember, on the paper pencil test, which we're not taking, but you may have it someday in the future, in another class, units count as 1 point for every problem. So don't forget to put the units on. So now to find the the approximate, I take my exact and I replace pi with what they tell me to use pi as. Sometimes they're going to say 22/7, sometimes they'll say 3.14. So you have to use what they tell you to. You don't get a pick because they will come out slightly different answers. So this one says put in 3.14, so 30 times 3.14. And I know you guys know how to do this. I'm just going to use a calculator just so we can get through this material because we have 12 pages to get through today. So I'm going to keep moving. So that would be 94.2. And I'm sorry the video is kind of blurry. The calculator's a little bit blurry. I don't know why. Oh, there it is. It's just at a bad angle. So 94.2. And that would be feet. So that's the approximate answer. Usually we use that to show approximation, to show the reader the answer has been rounded. This one we would use an equal sign because the answer was not rounded. And I should have used it up here too. I just realized I didn't. Where was it? Right here. So we should use squigglies there to show the reader it's no longer an exact answer. Now it's been approximated. So 3 problems you should have highlighted for your final, A, B, and D. So you have to find the circumference of a circle on the final, the area of a circle on the final, and you have to either do the area of a rectangle or a square, which are both the same, length times width. Okay, let's look at number 2. A bridge support is shaped like a trapezoid. So remember our little red trapezoid when we were doing our patterns for saying this was a hole, or 2 of these make a hole, or 4 of these make a hole. So that's our trapezoid. Remember, a trapezoid only has one pair of parallel sides. So these two are parallel, these two are not, because you can see eventually they would meet where these two will never meet. So find the area of the trapezoid. So then I go to my formula sheet and I find the trapezoid and I copy this formula. The only thing I don't like about that is I like my h first. So when I write it, I write 1/2 h parentheses b1 plus b2. So that's the only thing I do different is I move the h. And it's okay to do that. Remember how in Module 1 we learned that commutative property says in multiplication order doesn't matter, and it's 1/2 times the parentheses times h. So when I use it, I like to write it like this. 1/2 h b sub 1 plus b sub 2. And I frankly haven't ever seen it written out there. I think that's just kind of weird. Oh, I know why they did it. Because it's like triangle formula, half the base times the height. So they're trying to let you see that it's like a triangle. So if you look up here, see how it's half base times height? But this one, since there's two bases, you have to add them, but it's still 1/2 base times height. Okay, now I understand why they did that, to help students remember. But anyway, that's how I'm going to plug in. So I'm going to go right here, I'm going to switch colors, and I'm going to write my formula. 1/2 height base 1 plus base 2. And remember, these are all multiplication. They don't put multiplication when they write the formula, but you have to know there's an imaginary multiplication sign between all of them. So the bridge support's shaped like a trapezoid. Find the area. Don't forget to put proper units. So this is meters. So since it's area, we know it's going to be meters squared. So all area problems are squared. All circumference problems are just the units. All volume problems have a little 3. They're cubed. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in. So 1/2 times height always has a little right angle symbol, because when you take height, you have to go straight down. Just like if you were measuring yourself, you're not going to take a tape measure and go, oh, I'm going to see how tall I am. You're going to go straight down. So the height can always be found beside the right angle segment. Right angle segment. So that's 6 times B1. Doesn't matter which, usually students call the smallest one B1, but it doesn't matter. Plus base 2. So these are both bases, because you could turn it over and it could sit on this base 2. So base 1, base 2, h is the height. And what's 1/2 of 6? Because we know multiplication's left to right. 1/2 of 6 is 3, right? Times, and 10 plus 16, parentheses are first, you get what, 26? And then we can go 26 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18, carry 1, 78. So the area of this trapezoid is 78 meters squared. So parentheses first, then we go left to right. 1/2 of 6 is 3, so we have 3 times 26, 78, and it's square meters because it's area. So whatever this letter is, that determines what your units are going to be. An A means it gets a square, a C means it just gets the units, a V for volume would be units cubed. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the back of this page. So fencing, what should I be thinking about when I see cost of fencing? Fencing. Fencing is around the outside, right? So when it's around the outside, that means perimeter. So fencing is perimeter because it's around the outside. So a landscape designer is planning a flower garden in the shape of a hexagon, 3.5 feet on each side. So this is 3.5 feet, and 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 this is. So there's 6 sides. So can you think of the easy way to find the perimeter? 3.5 times 6, right? Or I could go 7, 7, 7, and do it in my head. 7 times 3 is 21. But a lot of students probably wouldn't recognize that. But you could also go 3.5 plus 3.5 plus 3.5. That would be the most tedious way. So I would say the easiest way is just to go 3.5 times 6. Come over here and work it out. 30, carrier 3, 18, 19, 20, 21. 1 decimal place. So we can see the perimeter is 21 feet. Remember, no exponents, no squares, no cubes on perimeter or circumference. The border of the garden costs $5.50 a foot. Find the cost of the border. And I do know I put this one on the final as well. So I found how many feet the border is. How do you think I'm going to find the cost? $5.50 a foot. So we have 21 feet. Does it make sense you're going to multiply those? 550 times how many feet we have, which is 21. So the cost is $5.50 times 21 feet. I guess we don't need to write that in. So like I said, I'm going to, just for time's sake, use this. 5.50 times 21. And like I said, on the final, there'll be somewhere they'll say use the Alex calculator. There'll be others they give you really easy numbers and you won't need it. But anytime they tell you you can use the Alex calculator, you can use it. On our paper pencil test, we didn't do calculators for any problems. So you guys are lucky. So 550 times 21. And when you're doing your homework, by the way, in Alex, finishing those 106 topics, only use the calculator when they can tell you to. Because if you put one by your side and use it for everything, what are you going to do on the final when it says no calculator on this problem? So you should not use the Alex calculator unless they tell you you can. Otherwise, you should be doing it by hand. Okay. So this is cost. So what am I missing here? I see that I'm missing 2 things. $sign and a 0. I will count that wrong. Guess what? So will Alex. Dollars and cents has 2 decimals. Your calculator's not always going to give you the exact perfect answer, but you have to know that because it's money, you need 2 decimal places. So always be cognizant of what you're finding. That's why I always write it there to remind, oh, this is cost. I got to put a $sign and oh, I need 2 decimal places. And that's what they ask for. Find the total cost. So after you find the perimeter, then you multiply it by how much it costs per foot, and that'll give you your total cost. Okay. Finishing a room. So this one was on the test, but it's not on the final, so we're not taking the test anymore. So the only place you'll see this one is in Alex. So find the amount of baseboard. So I can find that side, I can find that side, but do you see how there's 2 sides I'm missing? I'm missing that side. Can you think how I would find it? If this is 15 and this is 7, what could I do to get that? 15 minus 7, right? Which would be 8.